All right, here we go. I'm going to start this event. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoy what we have to say today. I'm Everett Duerksen. I'm CPA in Southern Alberta in Canada, and we're talking today about cash flow and how cash flow tricks work, or how some things will work for auto repair shop owners. Um, I'm a partner in a firm, EJDM MoneyWrench, and we've got a lot of clients, but in particular, our MoneyWrench product focuses on our auto repair clients and how they can be better, grow their shop, succeed in their business, have more time for family and other things like that. And we do that through financial management and for helping with CFO tools and things like that. So thanks for joining me today. Happy to have you here, and I will try to walk through as best I can and as entertaining as I can. Although I'm an accountant, so I don't know how that will possibly work. But anyway, hope you can hear me and things are going well. Excited to share this time with you. So let's talk first about how shop owners can impact their cash flow. And if you don't think you can, I would suggest you're probably wrong. In a shop or in any business, a lot of things boil down to the owner, and we know that's a lot of work. But cash flow is one of them. You can have a big impact on cash flow in the various things that you do, and some of it is really just started with understanding what cash flow is. Small business tends to focus on what cash is in the bank account, and we would argue that that is an important part, but cash flow starts with knowing what's going on in your business. So, my first step is to be a business owner, right? A lot of shop owners were mechanics at one point, and maybe still are on the tools every now and then, maybe a lot. You got to swap yourself out of that and go into being an owner of a business, and that means spending some time understanding what owning a business is like. And so that's important. And in order to do that, really you got to know how cash flow works. So where does cash come from? What are the various things that are going to impact it? There's a lot of actual pieces of your balance sheet and your operations that will impact cash flow if you really dig deep and learn about it. Sometimes it's going to mean you got to make hard choices. I'm a business owner myself, and I know there are difficult things that I have to do in that business, and so that can be a key part of being that business owner. As well, you got to know what's normal. So you're in an industry with a lot of competition all across the country. Most of yours is local because repairs need to happen where the people live, and that's fine. Um, you can you can know what is normal by understanding what other shops are doing all across the country, and that's where our MoneyWrench program really works well, uh, because we can help you understand what is happening across the country, and who's getting what numbers and things like that. So that's the first thing. Get real, understand cash, and then you got to understand where you're strong. Each of us as a business owner and each shop owner is going to be strong in certain things. So you might be the best at fixing a certain type of car. That's fine, really good. In business, you might be better at certain things. Maybe you're great at customer relations. Maybe you're great at just being in the shop. Maybe you're great at analyzing data and things like that. You've got to get comfortable with who you are, and find out where your best spots are. And that might mean you find out where you're not strong and you admit it and you get somebody to help you with that. So we see that a lot in clients with in bookkeeping in particular. And accounting tends to be something they don't understand or don't like, perhaps. Had one client that really just said, I hate this stuff, this paperwork, this accounting. And some of it was a lack of understanding what it was doing. Some of it was just he didn't want to be there. He wanted to be in the shop fixing stuff. That's where he was strong. So let the people who are good at things try and do it for you. You'll find some satisfaction in that, and some relief actually that somebody else is taking care of it. So that's how you can impact cash flow as a shop owner. And let's get into a little bit more about how you look at your numbers. Okay, so my first point is always you got to know your numbers, right? As a business owner, understand what's going on all the time by the data. And so if you look in your shop software management program, whatever it is, your POS system, you're going to see numbers in there. And you got to know what they do. You got to understand how they work, where they're coming from, and are they correct? So what I mean by that is you're going to find some cases where that shop management system is not talking to your bookkeeping data. And so it's spitting out numbers that kind of just cross each other and they don't work. And so make sure those two are talking together and are on the same language, so that when you do look at numbers, or when your accountant looks at numbers for you, they are noticing things that align and are really getting to the root of the real issue. And so what I mean by that is, in your POS system, you might see margins that look a certain way, but when we run the bookkeeping data, we find that they're different margins and the numbers are coming out differently. And so what we do is we try to get into figuring out why that is, what's showing up wrong, is there an error underneath that, is there something actually going wrong in the shop or at the service desk that's leading to that kind of discrepancy. So that's super helpful. And you got to look at that data regularly. So what we try to do is teach our clients how to review those numbers regularly, so that they actually are digging into the real issues, finding out what's happening, understanding how their shop is running based on what pieces of paper give them. And that's what you got to rely on. Data. Some of us don't like it, some of us really love it, but one thing it's got to do is data has to give you the tools to analyze your business well. So the classic example is a shop where we do the bookkeeping right at the end of the year. I haven't kept any records all year long, and really don't know day to day where they can bump up little improvements, where they can see fixes, things like that. So I'm going to tell you right now, bookkeeping at the end of your year is almost useless. It'll kind of help your accountant out a little bit, but it won't give you any math. It won't give you any real insight into what's going on, and it won't help you understand your business. So don't rely on that. Bookkeeping's got to be a much better tool for you than that. You're going to spend lots of money on it over the course of your shop's life. So make it a useful tool. Make it something that's going to win for you. And I guess the most important part of that point is you can't plan or project cash flow without some of that real-time data. It just doesn't work. You need the stuff there to see it. So let's talk about what numbers you want to look at. Obviously, I think you want to start with the highest priority. And right now, especially in cash flow, we are talking about COVID things, right? And there's COVID relief that's there for shop owners, just like a lot of other business owners. And that includes the wage subsidies that are out. There's a couple of them. I'll talk about them in a bit. There's the CEBA loans that go through your bank, some different things like that. There's some rent adjustments that can be made, some stuff like that. So I'll talk about them in a bit, but that would be your highest priority right now. We're in a spot where businesses are sometimes struggling, not sure who to hire, not sure what cash flow is going to look like. You got to take advantage of those programs and know what they're doing for you and get an understanding of it. Second priority is check your margins. We know that in every shop there's a number of margins you want to keep paying attention to. You've got a labor margin, you've got a parts margin, you've got margin on your tires. And if you don't know what I mean by margin, I mean you've got revenue and you've got the cost of that revenue and what's in between. So what are you making on all those costs? And we keep a pretty close eye on that stuff month in and month out. And for our clients in particular, we want to know when they're dropping those margins. We also want to target where they're not getting to yet and help them try to get there. So that's pretty key. And then probably a tougher one is to check your people. We've all got people in our businesses, and as a shop owner, you have as well. They might be admin people, they might be your service writer, they might be your techs at various levels. And there's sometimes where you got to have a tough discussion. And I know as Canadians, we like to, we're pretty nice people, right? And so we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. But there are times where somebody's not performing. And in order to be a successful shop, you need to have high performing people, and that's high performing techs as well. I don't think you can look at numbers too often. I think you can just, you got to see them all the time. I know guys that look at them every day, And that might be a bit overboard, but they get an idea, what's my revenue every day, gives you that scorecard, that dashboard, things like that. Yeah, so there's a question here from Joe, can I look at numbers too often? Nope, I don't think so. Even if it's 2 minutes a day, just to run it out of your POS system, go for it. See what's in there. Once you start to see it over and over again, you start to feel the rhythm, and you'll know when it's dipped or you'll know when it's climbing up. But I think for the cash flow tip that comes out of that, Joe, is when you see problems, you got to address them. And when you don't see problems, you got to ask whether you're pushing hard enough on some things. So just knowing numbers is not enough. We actually want to set new targets to get to, and then we want a new target to get to, and then we want a new target to get to. And there is kind of a cap to some degrees on those things, but just seeing numbers will give you information. Setting goals and targets will give you actual performance and give you results. So that's awesome. Along with the priority items, you're going to look at who's getting great reviews out of your shop. You know, which guys are making so that warranty work comes back. Which guys are making so that the client's vehicle is a mess when it's done, and how are things working, stuff like that. So from a performance perspective, you know, you're probably a pretty close family in your shop. That's okay. Families have to have tough conversations as well. So some of those things I think that will help you with that are things like metrics, right? What are you measuring for your techs in the shop? Are you measuring their time under what they're supposed to hit? Are you measuring times things come back from a customer? Are you measuring your service writer and how many invoices they're getting per month, or how much dollars per invoice you're seeing? Things like that. Everybody's got a metric, and in your business, you can assign them to people too, and that's not abnormal. The big shops will do that and do it really well and keep an eye on it. And so if you are performing and want to perform, that's a pretty good starting point. One of the other things about your numbers, and I'm going to host a webinar about this in the future, is what I call cash flow drivers, right? There are things in your shop that drive your cash flow. And I'm going to say there's 3 different types, right? There are price drivers, meaning what are you charging for something? Do you charge shop supplies right now? What's your average labor rate? What's your hourly rate? Do you have matrices built that way? Those things can be adjusted, and we try to give you some help on what those are. But those are price drivers that will change cash flow. So for example, if I spend 8 hours a day at $100 an hour, that's $800 that I should make. If I bump that up even by $10 an hour, I make an extra $80, right? So obviously you have a cap there and you have a limit, and that's where it's helpful to know what's going on around you. So connect with other shops, see what they're doing, get a feel for the numbers, but make little tweaks, and don't forget to review it every now and then. Don't just stop and say, oh, I used to know what this is, and it's probably going to be good for all time. Price drivers are things that you need to be on the lookout all the time for to know whether you should be adjusting. Second one is cost drivers. So we think that a service writer in a shop should be at a cost of about 7.5% to 10% of your revenue. And so, every shop's different. I understand that. And every service writer is different. You might have some better, some worse. But if you're way outside of that range, you might consider whether something is not quite right. That's just an example. I don't want to put them on the spot. There's other cost drivers like your operating costs, things like that, budgets that you have, office supplies, all sorts of stuff like that. So second one, so price drivers, cost drivers, super important. And then you're going to look at efficiency drivers. So, among all those other things what are the things that we're not doing efficiently right now? Maybe it's moving an invoice from the shop back into actual preparation. So, you go from an estimate to the shop, to the invoice, to back in here, and all the way around. Maybe that's a slow process. Maybe the things aren't laid out well in the shop so that your techs actually can work efficiently, things like that. So keep an eye on those 3 drivers: price drivers, cost, and efficiency. Super important. Number 4 of that one is to do some mid-year tax planning. This is a pretty critical one. Of all the tax or of all the surprises you get, a tax bill is one of them. And we try to make that go away. I don't like surprises, especially ones that cost you a lot of money and have a cash requirement all of a sudden in a big chunk. So what we try to encourage all the time is a mid-year tax plan. That's easy if your numbers are up to date. We could go in and look and see it and make an estimate, provide you some feedback, and then you can adjust your installments based on that. Very common, lots of businesses do it, and it gives you some peace of mind because you know you're going to be caught up with it as you go. B, it actually helps with cash flow. You don't have to make big expenditures all at one time. And that probably goes into my last point as well, that as many things as you can, you want on monthly terms. So, we do it right now, lots of times with insurance, property taxes, all sorts of expenses are a monthly thing, utilities, all that stuff. Well, can you imagine if you had to pay all those things at one time in one big chunk every year? You'd have these huge swings in cash flow, and that's the worst for managing a business. Super difficult to know what to do next, to know whether you have enough money available, whether there's enough sitting there or not. And then on the accounting side too, we work on a monthly fee with lots of our clients. We agree to an upfront price, give out a monthly amount, and that way you don't have a big accounting bill and tax bill all at the same time once a year. That just feels way better. So those are some of the keys that I want to bring out of what it means to look at your numbers. Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about COVID. That's the rage right now, and it has been for a couple of months. And so we've been walking our clients through how that impacts them. And as a shop owner, it's going to have an impact on you, and it already has, right? And you could all tell me stories about what worked, what didn't work, what it's like to be open again, what are you doing to address COVID, things like that. But let's just run through what some of the 5 items are that are pretty key. There's 4 primary ones and one that you may have used a little bit. So the first one is that income tax payments have been extended, right? That includes installments, things like that, and that's till the end of August 31st in 2020. You're going to want to take advantage of that if you can. Now, I just told you, make your installments. So in terms of deferring this cash, just maybe take it with a grain of salt that while you might want to extend it, you might know that it's going to come in a big chunk down the road as well. So keep in mind that one. It's a bit trickier to navigate. But anyway, you have the flexibility right now. If you can't pay those installments or those tax payments, give it a couple of months. You've got till the end of August. Second one is the temporary wage subsidy. And that one came out right away from the government in Canada, and that was a 10% subsidy, and that just happens on your payroll numbers. So ask whoever's been doing your payroll if they've been taking advantage of that 10% right since March. And that's up to a total of $13.75 per person, I believe, during the period. And that ends actually June 19th. So that's coming in a couple of weeks when that program shuts off. We don't know right now whether they'll extend it or what they're going to do, but that's number 2. The third one is the big wage subsidy, the one we all looked at and went, okay, this is great, and then I really don't know how to do this. This is the 75% subsidy that's out, and that allows you to take a subsidy of $847 per week per employee, and that ends now on August 29th. So it's based on a whole bunch of math in behind the scenes, talking about whether your income, dipped, whether your cash income dipped, and there's some options there and how you can calculate it. If somebody hasn't helped you with that already, let us know. But it's a pretty critical one to take advantage of if you can. And the first step is just knowing whether you can. So get some help on understanding whether you can or not. Lots of these you can look backwards to. You didn't have to, if you missed the deadline or you missed taking it in one period, you're not necessarily out of luck. There's some that you can go backwards. And then the fourth one that's pretty key is the CEBA loan that I talked about, and this is the guaranteed loan through your bank. So the government of Canada guaranteed, I don't know if it was the government, but somebody guaranteed $40,000 loans to businesses through your local banker, right? So go to them, and if you haven't already, apply for that loan. There's some things that have changed with that over the last couple of weeks, but it's still there and it's still available. And the benefit of that one is it's a bit of an operating loan that you are supposed to use for some certain things, but if you pay it off within, I think at the end of 2022 or something, 10 of it is refundable. So you get $10,000 for free by participating in this loan and then giving it back later. There's some stipulations around that and some tricks you'll want to follow, but it's there. Take advantage of it. Call your banker, say you want to get into it, and they'll help you out there. And then the fifth one that I said was maybe not as critical is the commercial rent assistance program. So that is a program that ends here at the end of June, but you can go retroactive with it as well. And this would be a spot where if you're in a shop that you rent from somebody else, the agreement is that you pay 25% and the landlord cuts down by 25%, and then the government will kick in 50%. So they're actually paying for half of your rent, but you got to agree with your landlord. They've got to accept it as well. And lots of them have, because it will, you're a long-term tenant, quite likely. You have a good relationship, we hope, and that's just part of it. And they have done that to help us all through the pandemic time. So, so take advantage of those. Those are some neat things. And there's lots out there for the individuals as well. We're focusing here on commercial or on corporations and businesses, but so those are the latest COVID items. I want to get after, somebody asked me, how do I, all these things are confusing. How do I keep track of it all? How do I do it all? Well, you're in luck. There are people out there that will do it. There's tons of information on the internet. The problem is a lot of it is just information. And so a lot of banks, accounting firms, all sorts of agencies are just sending you data and info and really aren't giving you a way to apply it all. So I encourage you to find somebody that knows what they're doing with it. If your accountant doesn't know what you're up to in these programs, give them a call and ask them if it's okay, if you're missing out on anything, and get them to help you with the program. Some are doing it for free, some are doing it for a cost. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're getting the access to some of these items that are COVID related. Super important that you reach out and just touch base and ask what the scenario is for you. I do think it's important to stay up to date, even though the information does change every few weeks. Then you do want to pay attention a little bit, although I realize it can be pretty time consuming and costly to watch all the news and watch all the articles and everything like that. So some of the keys out of there are from a cash flow perspective. We're talking about tricks for cash flow, and cash flow is not magical, right? It happens with diligence. It happens with you thinking a little bit creatively about what's going on. It happens with you paying attention to the programs, especially in a COVID period, that you know what's out there and what's available to you. Might mean some tough conversations, like I said. I think that's maybe one of the biggest ones is as a shop owner, you might want to have a tough conversation just with yourself and understand, try to get to where your cash flow comes from. Find some things that you can either save on or do better. Try to find some efficiencies, and those are tough to teach, right? We learn them over time. We don't always see them, and sometimes they just pop up. But I would also get your team involved in that. And you've got good people in your shop and in your office, so it's good to have a discussion about what could we be more efficient at, and try to maybe you got to set some targets. Maybe you got to set some rewards for that. That's okay. That will help your shop long term. So think about it like a marathon. We're sprinting right now with COVID and some of the things like that, trying to just get back to normal, be a normal business, things like that. So yeah, I encourage you to do some of those things. So what we're going to do, just about out of time for today, and I'm really happy that you all are here. We're going to run another webinar again next week. And talk about some COVID relief, go into a bit more detail. My partner Brian, who does a lot of our MoneyWrench work, is going to probably give us some COVID information. It's deeper than what I said. I'm not the COVID expert, There's a lot of people that know more about it than I do. And so I'm going to leave any questions on specifics in COVID to him to answer. He's got the brains and deals with it more than I do. But the cash flow side, I'm happy to talk to anybody about. We're going to run some webinars on cash flow drivers, like I said, really dig deep and do a workshop on how we get into those drivers and how they apply to your shop, what you can look at. And as well, I'm going to look at something we published called the 7 Steps to Survive in This Crisis. And so anytime you run through a blip in the map, and actually even in regular business, there are 7 steps that we've got that you can do, and they will help you adjust yourself, tweak a few things, diagnose where you've got some problems and some leaking. And so what that helps is it helps you to get to a better spot and find out where your target is going to be down the road. And I think I would encourage that amongst a lot of things is know where you're going. If you're a shop owner, entrepreneurial, want to be a business that's growing, a lot of that is understanding what your plan is, where you're going, and then filling in how you're going to get there. And there's people that can help you do that, and we'd be happy to help you do that. Lots of things we can do. So got a question here. Beth, what if I am my own landlord with separate corps? That is a great question, and that is a lot of things, a lot of questions that, or a lot of shops are aligned that way. We typically, or not typically, we often will see a company over here with owning a building and the shop being operated over here. I'm gonna have to defer to Brian on that one, so send us a note outside of the video and he can tell you on the technical bits there. And then I got another question here. Do I have a sheet on that spreadsheet that shows some of this and how it applies? Yeah, for sure we do. We've got an item for the 7 tips or 7 steps to survive. And I can send you that. Just send us a note in the comments or send me an email. And we'll put that up on the post so that you can get at that later. And we can send you what our 7 steps are. And then what we'll do is we'll walk through that maybe next week, go through some samples of it and things like that. We have some as well on the cash flow drivers. Like I said, I'll run a workshop on that. I think that will help out some of our owners and things like that. Just really clarify what's there. And then the COVID relief as well. We have got a checklist that we're using for that. That walks you through some of the financial bits about COVID. I won't promise to help you out and understand how specifically you need to keep your hands clean and different things like that. But on the finance end, we love to help out where we can, and so I'll make that available too. So just send me a message about that you'd like to see that. I'll let you have that, and then if you want to talk more about how it works, let us know, and we'd be happy to do that. So. I think that's good enough. I've got no other questions here for this, and we're just about out of time, so it's perfect. So I hope that sums up some of the cash flow tricks. And while they might not be tricks, there might be some things there that you might not be doing all the time. So in that case, they are. I encourage you to reach out, dig into some of those things a little bit deeper. Let us know if you have any struggles with it. And we'll schedule some new times and some new things to keep you updated and see how things go. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Again, my name is Everett. I'm with EJDM and in our MoneyWrench group where we are helping auto repair shops owners make more money, save more money, hopefully succeed in what they're doing, and see some great growth from their business, even in a time where other people are struggling and other businesses are a bit uncertain. So thanks very much for joining me. We'll talk to you soon, and take care. Thanks all.